The video opens with a dramatic introduction to Jeane Dixon, presenting her as one of the most controversial and unsettling prophetic figures in modern American history. From the very beginning, viewers are reminded that Dixon was not just another self-proclaimed psychic making vague predictions for entertainment. Instead, she was a woman whose visions uncannily aligned with some of the most defining tragedies of the 20th century. Her prediction of President John F. Kennedy's assassination, made years before he even entered the White House, cemented her reputation in the public consciousness. When Kennedy was shot in Dallas in 1963, Dixon's earlier warnings resurfaced, shocking the nation and giving her words a weight no skeptic could easily dismiss. Her foresight didn't end there. Dixon is also remembered for foretelling the mysterious and premature death of Marilyn Monroe, an icon whose life was shrouded in glamour, loneliness, and unanswered questions. Dixon described a troubled star whose end would come suddenly, and when Monroe was found dead in 1962, her prophecy gained even more traction. She went on to predict a violent attack on Pope Paul VI during his international travels, a threat that materialized when an assailant attempted to stab the Pope during a 1965 visit to the Philippines. Again and again, Dixon's predictions seemed to intersect with reality in ways that left many people uneasy. But the most disturbing part of the video revolves around Dixon's visions concerning Donald Trump, prophecies that were reportedly kept quiet for years because of their ominous tone. According to the narration, these predictions were considered too shocking, too politically charged, and too spiritually loaded to share with the public at the time they were recorded. Dixon allegedly saw a figure surrounded by gold, a leader who would rise unexpectedly, captivate millions, and bring both hope and turmoil. Her followers later connected this symbolic imagery to Trump's golden buildings, his lavish persona, and his dramatic political ascent. The video suggests that Dixon's Trump-related prophecies were hidden not to protect her reputation, but to prevent fear and controversy. Only now, as global tensions rise and America remains deeply divided, are these predictions resurfacing. The introduction sets the stage for a deeper, darker exploration of what Dixon foresaw, hinting that the most unsettling revelations may still be ahead. Jeane Dixon often insisted that her visions were not the product of intuition, imagination, or any occult practice, but messages given directly to her by God. From childhood, she claimed to have experienced powerful spiritual impressions, moments of clarity in which future events appeared before her with unsettling vividness. As she grew older, these visions intensified, often arriving during times of prayer or quiet reflection. Dixon explained that she never sought prophetic power. Instead, she believed she had been chosen as a vessel, entrusted with glimpses of the future for reasons she did not always fully understand. Her claims might have been dismissed if not for the extraordinary accuracy of several early predictions. When she forecast the rise of a young Democratic president who would die violently in office, the public took notice only after John F. Kennedy's assassination shockingly fulfilled her prophecy. Similarly, her warnings about Marilyn Monroe's tragic end and the attempted attack on Pope Paul VI strengthened her credibility in the eyes of millions. These events made it difficult for even skeptics to brush aside her visions as coincidence. She had described situations too specific, too unusual, and too improbable to ignore. As Dixon's reputation grew, so did her influence. Many political leaders, some publicly, others in secrecy, began to seek her counsel. In Washington, she became an unexpected figure in the background of power, offering insights that some believed were divinely inspired. High-ranking officials, senators, and even foreign dignitaries were rumored to have visited her, hoping her visions could provide clarity during moments of national or global uncertainty. Within religious communities, particularly among devout Catholics and Christians who believed in spiritual gifts, Dixon was viewed by some as a modern-day prophetess, someone whose voice carried warnings meant to guide a troubled era. Yet her rise also attracted fear and suspicion. To others, Dixon's insights felt too sharp, too ominous, suggesting not divine blessing, but something darker. Her ability to foresee tragedy led some to believe she was cursed, or that her visions originated from dangerous spiritual forces. This divide between those who saw her as God's messenger and those who feared she walked too close to the unknown became a defining part of her legacy. Ultimately, Dixon's credibility did not stem solely from her predictions, but from the profound impact she had on both political and religious circles. Whether seen as gifted or cursed, her visions demanded attention, shaping the way many approached matters of power, faith, and fate. Behind the bold public predictions that captured the attention of newspapers and television audiences, Jeane Dixon was said to have lived a far more secretive and influential life, one that unfolded behind closed doors, far from the public eye. While the world knew her as the psychic who predicted national tragedies, whispers circulated about another side to her work, private consultations with some of the most powerful individuals of her time. These secret meetings were not meant for entertainment or media spectacle. They were sought out by politicians, business tycoons, and global decision-makers who quietly believed her visions might hold insights capable of shaping major events. Reports described a steady stream of black cars and discreet visitors arriving at Dixon's Washington, D.C. home late at night or early in the morning. Senators facing tight elections, diplomats navigating international tensions, and influential executives making multi-million-dollar decisions were rumored to seek her guidance. Many came in desperation, others came out of fear, and some visited simply because they could not ignore her increasing record of accurate predictions. In these intimate sessions, Dixon spoke not in vague riddles, but with a conviction that suggested she had already seen the outcome of their choices. To those who met her privately, Dixon became more than a fortune teller. She became a hidden advisor whose warnings could alter strategies, delay actions, or embolden the hesitant. Some accounts suggest she provided insights on matters as weighty as war, economic crisis, and diplomatic negotiations. Though no official documents confirm these interactions, the consistency of these stories only added to her mystique. Whether fully true or embellished over time, they created the impression that Dixon's influence reached far beyond the world of tabloid headlines and magazine features. It was this aura of secrecy that contributed most to the fear surrounding her name. If her guidance truly swayed the decisions of powerful leaders, what unseen hand was shaping history? Some saw her as a silent guardian, offering divine warnings to those placed in positions of authority. Others viewed her as a dangerous force, someone whose visions could mislead or manipulate the direction of nations. The ambiguity fueled both fascination and unease. The more her private consultations were whispered about, the more Dixon's legend grew. She became a figure operating at the strange intersection of prophecy and power, her influence rumored to extend into the highest realms of government and global affairs. In the shadows, her role was far more significant than the public ever realized, feeding a mystique that still lingers today. As Jeane Dixon's predictions continued to align with major world events, her reputation evolved from that of a peculiar fortune teller into a figure surrounded by awe, fear, and relentless curiosity. What began as isolated claims turned into a pattern that many found impossible to dismiss. Each time one of her visions materialized in reality, the belief strengthened that Dixon possessed access to knowledge far beyond coincidence or intuition. Her prediction of John F. Kennedy's assassination marked the turning point. Years before Kennedy even secured the presidency, Dixon spoke of a young, charismatic Democrat who would rise to national leadership only to face a violent death while in office. When Kennedy was gunned down in Dallas in 1963, the chilling accuracy of her foresight stunned the nation. Newspapers revisited her earlier statements, and people who had once mocked her began to wonder if she had truly glimpsed the future. But the Kennedy prophecy was not an isolated case. Dixon had also warned of a beautiful but troubled star whose life would end too soon and under mysterious circumstances. Marilyn Monroe's sudden death in 1962, still clouded in controversy and speculation, seemed to echo Dixon's earlier warnings. The connection between her prediction and Monroe's tragic fate only deepened public fascination. Then came a prophecy involving Pope Paul VI. In 1965, Dixon predicted that the Pope would face a violent threat during his travels. That same year, during a visit to the Philippines, a man disguised as a priest lunged at the pontiff with a knife, an attack that was narrowly stopped just in time. The incident sent shockwaves through religious and political communities alike, and Dixon's credibility rose yet again. These events, JFK's assassination, Monroe's mysterious death, and the attempted attack on the Pope, formed a triad of predictions too precise for skeptics to easily explain away. To many, the pattern suggested Dixon was receiving information from a source beyond normal human perception. Whether divine or otherworldly, people believed she was tapping into forces that revealed fragments of the future long before they unfolded. With each fulfilled prophecy, Dixon's reputation became more powerful, more mystifying, and more unsettling. What once seemed like wild speculation began to feel like a disturbing window into destiny itself, one that hinted her visions were far more than lucky guesses. In the later years of her life, Jeane Dixon reportedly experienced a series of visions that were darker, sharper, and more symbolic than many of her earlier prophecies. Among these final revelations was one of her most mysterious and controversial, the image of a golden figure rising from the west. This figure, she said, would not emerge quietly or gradually, but would burst into the world stage with dazzling force, capturing the admiration, devotion, and fierce loyalty of millions. The crowds around him would see him as a savior, a reformer, a man destined to restore what had been lost. Yet behind this adoration, Dixon sensed the presence of forces guiding him, forces he could not see and did not fully understand. To Dixon, symbols were never random. Gold was one of the most important and dangerous symbols in her visions. She believed gold represented temptation, material power, and the false glow of worldly success. It was the color of wealth and the lure of glamour, but also the mask that concealed spiritual weakness. In her writings, she often warned that gold could disguise deception and that those who shimmered brightest might not be what they appeared. Thus, when she described a leader shining in gold, she was not speaking merely of appearance, but of a deeper spiritual warning. The video connects this prophetic symbolism to Donald Trump, whose identity is woven with gold at nearly every level. Golden towers, golden interiors, golden branding, and a public persona built on opulence and spectacle. His sudden rise from the business world into the political arena mirrors the dramatic ascent Dixon described. Millions were drawn to him with fervor, believing he was sent to confront a broken system and revive national pride. Yet the prophecy's mention of unseen forces guiding him creates an unsettling question. Was this leadership divinely ordained or manipulated by influences hidden from public view? Dixon's followers have long debated whether the golden figure was meant as a promise or a warning. Was he a reformer destined to challenge corrupt institutions? Or was he a test, an embodiment of temptation that would reveal the spiritual state of the nation? The ambiguity is what gives the prophecy its power. By linking Trump's rise to Dixon's vision, the video suggests that her symbolic warnings may now be unfolding in real time, and that the golden figure was never simply about a man, but about the spiritual struggle surrounding him. In one of Jeane Dixon's lesser-known journal entries from 1979, she wrote a cryptic passage that has since become one of the most hotly debated fragments of her prophetic legacy. The entry described the emergence of a powerful leader whose rise would take place when the eagle sleeps, a phrase that many interpret as referring to a moment in American history marked by weakness, confusion, or moral decline. Dixon believed that nations, like individuals, experience cycles of spiritual awakening and spiritual exhaustion. When the eagle, the ancient symbol of American strength, slipped into a period of vulnerability, she warned, it would create a void ripe for the arrival of a charismatic and transformative figure. In the same passage, Dixon wrote that this leader would promise to make the republic great again. At the time, the phrase seemed unremarkable, easily dismissed as poetic language reflecting general political sentiment. Yet decades later, when Donald Trump adopted "Make America Great Again" as the defining slogan of his political movement, the connection became impossible for many of Dixon's followers to ignore. The resemblance was too striking, too precise, and far too aligned with broader themes of her visions to be considered mere coincidence. The video interprets this journal entry as a prophetic reference to Trump, an interpretation grounded not only in the echoed phrase, but also in the symbolism of the eagle. According to Dixon's writings, a sleeping eagle signified a divided and disillusioned America, a nation struggling internally and vulnerable spiritually. Trump's rise in such a climate fits the imagery. A turbulent era in which political trust eroded, cultural conflict intensified, and millions longed for a leader who would restore a sense of purpose. But Dixon's prophecy did not portray this figure as purely heroic. She warned that the leader who emerged during the eagle's slumber would bring both restoration and division. To some, he would be a reformer who reignited patriotism and challenged entrenched systems. To others, he would serve as a catalyst for conflict, exposing fractures in the nation's identity and awakening deep ideological rifts. The serpent of division, another phrase Dixon used in related notes, was not unleashed by the leader himself, but by the reactions, fears, and passions he stirred in the people. In this interpretation, Trump becomes not just a political figure, but a spiritual test, one who reveals the underlying state of the nation's soul. Dixon's 1979 entry thus stands as both a prediction and a warning that a leader promising greatness would transform America, not only through policy, but through the divisions, awakenings, and moral reckonings he would bring to light. Among Jeane Dixon's most haunting late-life visions was her description of a golden tower struck by lightning. Although she never identified the tower by name, her symbolic language has long fascinated researchers, and the video interprets this image as an unmistakable reference to Donald Trump's empire. Trump's buildings, particularly Trump Tower, are famously adorned with gold decor, gold branding, and a visual identity built around wealth and glittering opulence. To Dixon, gold was never a neutral symbol. It represented temptation, pride, and the dazzling lure of material power. When she saw a golden tower trembling under a bolt of lightning, she was warning of more than structural collapse. She was alluding to the downfall of pride and the inevitable consequences of spiritual imbalance. The lightning, in Dixon's prophetic vocabulary, symbolized sudden revelation, an act of divine correction that exposed hidden truths or shattered illusions. It was a force that broke through worldly glamour to reveal the weaknesses beneath. The video interprets this as a metaphor for the political and social shockwaves surrounding Trump's presidency, especially the unprecedented turmoil within America itself. When the Capitol riots erupted on January 6, 2021, many saw this as the moment the lightning struck, a violent rupture that exposed the intensity of national division and the fragility of democratic stability. In this reading, the Golden Tower represents not only Trump's personal brand, but the broader symbol of American might, wealth, and pride. Its shaking signifies a nation confronted with its own fractures. The lightning does not destroy for destruction's sake. It forces a reckoning. Dixon believed that pride, whether held by individuals or nations, always faces a dramatic correction before spiritual renewal can take place. Thus, the trembling of the Golden Tower is not an ending, but a turning point, a moment when America is pushed to confront its deepest vulnerabilities. The video suggests that Dixon foresaw America entering a period of chaos, not caused solely by external enemies, but by internal conflict, division, misinformation, and a growing inability to distinguish truth from illusion. The Capitol riots serve as a powerful symbol of this internal collapse, mirroring Dixon's warning that the greatest threats to America would arise from within. By linking this vision to modern events, the video argues that Dixon's prophecy may be unfolding now, with the lightning strike representing a collective wake-up call. The Golden Tower's tremble signals a nation marked by turmoil, yet also standing on the threshold of transformation if it chooses to learn from the shock that shook it. Jeane Dixon repeatedly warned that America was destined to face a profound spiritual crossroads, a moment in history when the nation would be forced to confront the truth about itself. In her later writings and cryptic notes, she hinted that this turning point would emerge around the symbolic year 2026, a date she encoded in the phrase, "when the twin twos meet the turning six." While enigmatic, the imagery implies a merging of dualities, light and shadow, truth and deception, at a time when a six, the number of destiny and correction in Dixon's symbolic system, begins to turn. According to the video's interpretation, this marks a period when the country's moral and spiritual foundations are tested more dramatically than ever before. To Dixon, years were never just numbers, they carried energetic signatures. The twin twos signified division and reflection, two forces confronting each other like opposing mirrors. The six, by contrast, symbolized both danger and transformation, the moment when consequences can no longer be postponed. When these elements meet, she suggested, America would face a reckoning. This reckoning would not necessarily arrive in the form of disaster or war, but through a psychological and spiritual unveiling. People would be compelled to choose between clarity and illusion, honesty and denial. The warning centered on deception, how easily a nation built on ideals could be swayed by charismatic figures, misinformation, or the seduction of comforting lies. Dixon believed that deception was the greatest threat to America's soul, more dangerous than external enemies or economic collapse. She foresaw a moment when truth itself would be challenged, when vast groups of people would cling to narratives that reflected their fears rather than reality. This atmosphere, she warned, would open the door for manipulation on a national scale. Yet Dixon did not view 2026 as a doom-laden prophecy. Instead, she described it as an opportunity for renewal, if enough people awakened to what was happening. The crossroads symbolized a chance for the country to rediscover spiritual integrity, unity, and purpose. Her message emphasized individual responsibility. Renewal would not come from political leaders or institutions, but from ordinary citizens choosing compassion, discernment, and a return to timeless values. Thus, 2026 becomes more than a year. It becomes a symbolic threshold. The nation stands between two paths, one leading toward renewal, the other toward deeper deception. According to the video's interpretation of Dixon's prophecy, the outcome depends entirely on which path America chooses when the twin twos meet the turning six. Jeane Dixon's broken mirror prophecy stands among her most haunting and symbolically rich visions. She spoke of a time when humanity would look into a mirror expecting clarity, but instead see only distorted reflections, echoes of truth twisted by illusion. The video interprets this imagery as a direct foreshadowing of the modern digital age, a world saturated with misinformation, manipulated images, deep fakes, and narratives engineered to confuse rather than enlighten. According to Dixon, this future would be marked by a crisis not of technology but of perception itself. In her writings, the mirror symbolized humanity's ability to see itself honestly, to confront both collective strengths and collective flaws. A broken mirror, by contrast, represented a spiritual injury, a fracture in society's shared understanding of reality. Dixon believed that once the mirror cracked, individuals would begin living inside fragmented worlds of their own choosing, each piece reflecting a partial truth, each shard capable of cutting those who attempted to grasp it. In this fractured landscape, truth would no longer be a common foundation, but a matter of interpretation, vulnerable to manipulation by those seeking power. The video draws a striking parallel between this prophecy and the digital ecosystem of the 21st century, where information spreads faster than comprehension and where carefully crafted illusions often overshadow verified facts. Social media feeds become hallways of mirrors, each reflecting a curated reality. Political rhetoric blurs fact and fiction. Technology allows anyone to construct a version of truth that feels authentic, but may be entirely fabricated. Dixon foresaw this not as a technological advancement, but as a spiritual danger, because once illusion becomes indistinguishable from truth, humanity loses its compass. Yet, Dixon's prophecy was not solely a warning, it was also a promise. She insisted that healing would come only after the mirror shatters completely. Only when illusions collapse under their own weight, when people realize how deeply they have been misled, will a new form of clarity emerge. The breaking of the mirror, while painful, becomes necessary. It forces society to rebuild its relationship with truth from the ground up, free from the distortions that once obscured it. In this sense, the prophecy describes a cycle: illusion, fragmentation, collapse, and ultimately renewal. According to the video's interpretation, Dixon believed that humanity would eventually rise from the ruins of the broken mirror with a stronger, more authentic understanding of reality, provided it has the courage to face the shattering first. In the final years of her life, Jeane Dixon's prophetic vision became increasingly focused on the moral and spiritual trajectory of the United States. Among her last messages was the description of a singular figure, a man whose rise and actions would test the very soul of the nation. According to the video, many scholars and followers interpret this enigmatic figure as a reference to Donald Trump, whose political ascent and polarizing influence seemed to mirror Dixon's symbolic warnings. Yet, Dixon's focus was never purely political. Her concern was the spiritual consequences of leadership, the way a single figure could awaken both hope and peril in a society unprepared for introspection. Dixon repeatedly emphasized that the ultimate danger facing humanity was not military conflict, economic collapse, or foreign domination, but the erosion of truth itself. In her view, truth was the foundation upon which all morality, justice, and social cohesion rested. Once a society abandons its commitment to reality, whether through deception, manipulation, or self-delusion, it becomes vulnerable to forces that prey on ignorance, fear, and ambition. Dixon's vision suggested that the nation's trials would not be solved by laws or policies alone, but by the collective willingness of people to discern fact from illusion, to uphold integrity even when faced with seductive falsehoods. Her writings made a clear distinction between prophecy and fate. Dixon insisted that seeing the future was not the same as determining it. Prophecies were warnings, not predetermined outcomes. By describing challenges, she sought to alert humanity to the choices ahead, offering a roadmap for conscious decision-making rather than a script of inevitable disaster. Her final messages, therefore, functioned less as predictions of doom and more as urgent calls for vigilance, discernment, and spiritual awareness. In this context, the figure who tests the nation's soul serves as a mirror, reflecting both collective strengths and vulnerabilities. Dixon suggested that the leader himself is secondary to the way society responds. Will people recognize deception and choose truth, or will they surrender to spectacle, pride, and division? This distinction underscores the moral lesson of her final vision. Leadership can catalyze awakening or corruption, but the ultimate responsibility lies with the citizenry. Dixon's closing words remind us that prophecy is a tool for preparation. By observing her visions and warnings, humanity is invited to confront its own limitations, examine its values, and choose the path of enlightenment. The test she foresaw is not a fate imposed from above, but a challenge to the conscience of every individual living in a time of uncertainty, division, and profound change.